The market street was loud and full of life. Aliens of many kinds walked fast. Some sold fruits glowing with strange colors. Others shouted prices of cloth or tools. The smell of smoke and cooked food mixed in the hot air. And yet in all the noise a single cry broke through. A human named Daniel was walking slowly. He was not from this world, but worked here as a mechanic. He often passed the same street after his job was done. He was used to the sound of merchants and the crowd pushing past him. But that day felt different. His eyes caught movement at the edge of the crowd. A small figure, trembling. It was a girl, her skin pale silver, her eyes too wide. She looked weak, her clothes torn and dusty. She stood near the shadow of a broken wall. No one looked at her. People walked past like she was invisible, but Daniel saw her lips move. She whispered something, her voice too soft under the noise. When Daniel came closer, she suddenly grabbed his wrist with cold, shaking hands. Her voice broke into a cry. "Please come with me." The sudden touch froze him. He looked down at her face. Thin lines of tears glowed faintly under her eyes. Her whole body shook. Daniel felt the stares of a few passers-by. Some muttered, some laughed, but most simply ignored. "Let go, little one." "What's wrong?" Daniel asked, his voice calm though his heart had started to beat faster. He could tell this was no ordinary beggar. Her fear was real, deeper than hunger or coins. She shook her head hard. Her grip only grew tighter. "Please, just follow. Don't ask here." Her voice cracked with desperation. Daniel hesitated. He had seen scams in this city before. He had heard of thieves using children to trick travelers, but something in her eyes was different. It was not the cold eyes of a liar. It was the raw cry of someone carrying a secret too heavy to hold. The girl glanced around, her silver eyes darting left and right as if expecting someone to appear from the crowd. She whispered again, "They will see we must go." Daniel looked once more at the busy market, then back at her. He thought of the danger, but he also thought of what it would mean to walk away. Her hand trembled in his, and without words he nodded slowly. Her breath caught like she had been holding it for minutes. Then she pulled him into the narrow side alley. The light from the market dimmed at once. Here the walls leaned close. Cracked bricks, damp stone, and garbage lay piled. The air was colder and carried a smell of rust. The sound of the market faded behind them, replaced by the hollow echo of their steps. Daniel followed, his boots crunching over broken glass, his mind filled with questions, but he held them back. The girl's fear told him the truth would come soon enough. Every few steps she looked behind, making sure he was there, making sure no one else followed. Her breathing was uneven, like she was carrying more than just her body weight. Daniel felt the weight of silence pressing around them. He had been in battles before. He knew this feeling. The quiet before something dangerous revealed itself. And yet he kept walking. The girl stopped once, pressed her small hand to a wall as if steadying. Herself, Daniel noticed how thin she was, how even her bones seemed too fragile. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. She nodded quickly, though her lips trembled. "We must hurry," she whispered and moved again. The alleys twisted like a maze. Daniel tried to remember the turns, but soon lost count. Left, right, another left, down steps that smelled of damp stone. Each turn took them deeper from the noise of the city, deeper into shadows where few dared to go. At one point Daniel heard something behind them, a soft shuffle. But when he turned, there was nothing, only the faint drip of water down a pipe. Still, his muscles tensed. His instincts told him danger was close. Finally, after what felt like a long walk, the girl stopped before a crooked wooden door set in a crumbling wall. She turned to him, her face pale, her lips pressed tight, her tears fresh again. "This is my home," she said in a whisper, her voice breaking. "But what is inside? It will change everything you think." Daniel stared at the door. The wood rotten, the handle rusted. He felt a cold chill run through his spine. He had followed her without knowing why, but now he stood at the edge of something unknown. The girl's hands shook as she reached for the handle, but she did not open it yet. She only looked at him, her eyes wide and wet. "Please, don't leave me now," she begged. Daniel's heart tightened. The street behind them was gone, the way back lost. Only forward remained. He gave a slow nod, steady and firm, and the girl turned back to the door, her small hand pressing down. The hinges groaned, the darkness inside whispered, and Daniel knew that whatever lay beyond would not only test him, it might shatter him. The wooden door did not open yet. The girl's hand shook on the handle, and Daniel could see her body trembling like she stood on the edge of a storm. She pulled back instead and whispered, "Not yet. They may be watching." She turned away from the door and led him deeper into the alley maze. Daniel followed, his boots echoing softly on the cracked stone path. The air grew colder, and the sky above shrank into a narrow strip between broken rooftops. Every corner felt wrong, the kind of wrong that made his soldier instincts twitch. Shadows moved in places they should not. The flicker of broken neon signs barely lit the way. Rats ran across their path, and once Daniel thought he saw an eye gleam from a dark window. But when he blinked, it was gone. The girl kept glancing behind them, her silver eyes wide. Her steps quick and nervous. Daniel stayed close, ready to pull her aside if danger showed. "Who is watching you?" he asked quietly. She shook her head fast. "No questions now. Not here." Her voice was sharp with fear. She kept walking, faster, her small hand gripping his sleeve now like she feared he might vanish if she let go. Daniel felt tension rising. He scanned the alley around them, every broken crate, every shadowed doorway. He had walked through war zones before, and this felt the same, an unseen enemy breathing down their necks. At one turn, a group of drunk aliens blocked the way, their eyes lazy but sharp enough to notice a human and a fragile girl walking past. One laughed, a harsh sound that echoed against the walls. "Where are you going with that scrap human?" another called out. The girl froze, her grip on Daniel's arm turned iron tight. Daniel placed himself in front of her, his broad frame blocking her from their sight, his voice steady but cold. "Keep walking. Nothing here for you." The laughter grew louder, but when Daniel's hand touched the old knife at his belt, they seemed to reconsider. Their eyes narrowed, but they stepped aside. Still muttering and spitting on the ground, the girl pulled Daniel quickly past them before anything worse began. After the danger passed, her body shook harder, her breath uneven. Daniel slowed and spoke low. "You can trust me, I won't leave." But she only whispered, "You don't understand. If they see you with me, they will take you too." Her words made his chest tighten. Whoever they were, they carried real power in these alleys. They moved deeper still. And now Daniel noticed signs scratched into the walls, strange markings, some like warnings, others like symbols of control, as if gangs or rulers had carved their claim into the stone. The girl avoided every wall with a mark, taking turns that kept them away. The silence of the alley was heavy, broken only by distant drips of water and the scurry of unseen creatures. Daniel's thoughts grew darker with every step. What secret could this child carry that made her so desperate? What danger lived behind that rotting door? At last she slowed, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of her secret dragged her down. She stopped before another narrow passage, this one so tight Daniel had to turn sideways to pass. She whispered, "No one comes here, we are almost safe." Her words carried no comfort, only sorrow. Daniel followed her through the narrow way, the air here thick with dust, the stone wet and cold. His fingers brushed rough walls as they squeezed through. Then finally the alley opened into a hidden courtyard. Broken roofs above let in thin strips of fading light. The girl stopped in the middle, her hands clutching each other. She looked up at Daniel, her eyes shimmering with tears. "I begged you to follow because no one else listens. They all walk past us. They all pretend we don't exist." Her voice cracked. Daniel stepped closer, his voice steady. "Tell me, what is waiting behind that door?" Her lips trembled. She turned her face away. "My family," she whispered, "but not like you think." Daniel felt the weight of her words sink into him, heavier than the air around them, heavier than the silence. His heart beat slow but strong. Something told him the truth inside that door would change him, would test him more than any battle he had fought. The girl wiped her eyes quickly, her thin body shaking but her voice trying to be firm. If you want to leave, leave now before it's too late. Daniel looked at her. Small, broken, yet standing with courage, and he knew he could not leave. He had crossed the alleys, faced the shadows, stepped deeper. Into her world of silence there was no turning back. He placed a hand on her shoulder, warm and steady. "Show me," he said simply. Her breath shivered, but she nodded at last, turning back toward the path that led to the crooked wooden door, the one she had feared to open. And together they walked, each step echoing in the hollow silence of the alleys. Darkness seemed thicker now, pressing in around them as if the city itself tried to stop them from reaching the truth. And Daniel knew the real journey was only beginning. The crooked wooden door loomed before them once more, its surface scarred with cracks, the iron hinges red with rust. The smell of damp wood and old dust spread from it like a warning. Daniel stood still, the girl at his side trembling, her small hand hovering just above the handle. She looked up at him with wide silver eyes, her voice barely a whisper. "If you step inside, you cannot forget what you see." Daniel's jaw tightened. His instincts told him this was more than a ruined home. This was a secret kept hidden not just from strangers, but from the world itself. He nodded slowly, his voice calm. "I came this far. I won't turn away." Her lips trembled, tears glistening again. She pressed the handle down. The door groaned like an old creature waking from a long sleep. The sound cut through the silence of the alley. Daniel felt the hair on his arms rise. The door creaked, open, and the stench of sickness rolled out, thick and sour. Daniel's stomach clenched. He had smelled hospitals on battlefields before, but this was worse, raw and untreated. Inside, the room was dim. A single cracked lantern flickered weakly, its light spilling across the walls. Daniel stepped in after her, his boots crunching on broken plaster, his eyes adjusting to the darkness. What he saw made his chest tighten. On the floor, thin mats and torn blankets lay scattered, and on them were bodies, not lifeless, but barely alive. Alien children with hollow cheeks and sunken eyes, their skin pale, some coughing weakly, others too weak to move. A frail old woman sat in the corner, rocking back and forth, humming a broken tune as if to soothe those around her. The girl dropped to her knees beside the closest child, a boy with the same silver eyes. His chest rose shallow, his breath wheezing. She brushed his hair back gently. "I brought help," she whispered to him, though her voice cracked with doubt. Daniel felt the weight of the room crash down on him. This was no trap, no trick. This was desperation carved into every face, every breath. He crouched low, his voice steady though heavy. "These are your family," the girl nodded, her tears dripping onto the boy's blanket. "My brothers, my sisters, my mother." She pointed to the old woman in the corner, her voice trembling. "We were cast out, called unclean. No one helps us. They say we carry death." Daniel's fist tightened at her words. He looked around at the children, so thin their bones showed, so weak their voices were whispers of life. He had seen soldiers left behind on battlefields, but here it was children, abandoned in the heart of a city, that simply turned away. One of the younger girls reached out a trembling hand toward him, her voice faint. "Are you real?" Daniel knelt beside her, taking her small hand gently. "I'm real," he said softly, his heart breaking at the question. How long had they been ignored that even the sight of someone helping felt like a dream? The girl who brought him here, still kneeling by her brother, looked up at him, her face pale but her eyes fierce. "I begged so many. No one listened. They spit on us. They tell us to die in the dark," she whispered. "But you stopped. You came." Daniel felt the silence grow heavier. The broken lantern flickered, shadows stretching across the sick and the weak. He stood slowly, his mind racing. What could one man do against a whole city's cruelty? But his heart already knew he could not walk away. The old woman in the corner lifted her head, her voice rough like dry leaves. "Human," she croaked, "you should leave. If they know you are here, they will call you one of us. They will destroy you too." Daniel looked at her, her eyes clouded yet sharp with warning, but he did not move to leave. Instead, he stepped closer, Then let them try, he said, his voice firm. I will not abandon you. The girl gasped, softly, as if she had never expected such words. Her tears fell harder, her hands clutching her brother's frail frame. Daniel scanned the room again, his throat tight. He saw hunger written in their thin faces, sickness in their weak bodies, despair in their tired eyes, and he felt something shift inside him, deeper than duty, deeper than survival. This was not just about them, it was about him too, about proving that humanity was not measured by strength or power, but by the choice to stand when everyone else turned away. He turned back to the girl, his voice steady. I understand why you begged me to follow, but now you must understand this. I will not leave you. The girl pressed her hands over her mouth to stop a sob. Her body shaking, she whispered through her tears. Then maybe there is still hope. The flickering lantern dimmed again. The room dipped into shadows, and Daniel felt the truth settle heavy in his chest. He had seen many battles, faced many dangers, but this broken room full of abandoned lives was the fight that might shatter him. The flickering lantern burned low, throwing long shadows across the sick children and the crumbling walls. Daniel stood in silence for a moment, his chest heavy with the sight. But he knew there was more. The girl's words echoed in his mind. Not like you think? She rose from her brother's side, her thin fingers brushing away tears. Her eyes, still wet but her voice steadier now. There is something else. Something I must show you. But only if you promise not to run. Daniel looked at her with steady eyes. I already promised, he said softly. Whatever it is, I will see. The girl turned to the old woman in the corner. Her mother, the elder, gave a weak nod, her cloudy eyes heavy with sorrow. Show him, she whispered, her voice like wind through dead leaves. The girl led Daniel toward the back wall, where cracked plaster and old bricks were half covered by a hanging cloth. She pulled the cloth aside, revealing a narrow wooden panel fitted into the stone. Her small hands pressed against it, and with a soft groan the panel shifted open. A cold draft rushed out, carrying the smell of dust and rot. Daniel's instincts sharpened. He placed a hand on his knife, though he did not draw it. His voice, Sorko, what's down there? The girl's voice shook. The ones we could not save. Daniel's jaw tightened as he stepped closer. The hidden space was a passage, a narrow tunnel leading into darkness beneath the ruined home. He ducked low and followed her, the lantern light from behind fading quickly, leaving only shadows pressing close. The tunnel walls were damp stone, rough and cold beneath his touch. His boots scraped the uneven ground, and every sound echoed like whispers in the dark. The girl walked ahead with trembling steps, yet determination pulled her forward. After several steps, the tunnel widened into a chamber. The smell here stronger, heavier. Daniel's eyes adjusted to the dim glow of fungus clinging to the walls. Faint blue light revealing what lay before him. Rows of shapes, small and still. Wrapped in cloth too thin to hide the truth, bodies, children, women, young men, all lifeless. Laid out carefully in the silence. Daniel froze, his breath caught in his throat. He had seen death on battlefields, but this was different. Not warriors who fell in combat, but innocents who had never been given a chance to live. The girl stood at the edge of the chamber, her shoulders shaking, her voice breaking. When they grew too weak, when food was gone, when the sickness took them, we brought them here. We had no choice. Her tears fell onto the damp stone. The city would not bury them. They would not even touch us. Daniel's hands curled into fists, his heart pounding with anger and sorrow. He felt the weight of each silent body pressing down on him, a truth too cruel for words. He stepped closer, lowering himself to one knee, his hand brushing the edge of one of the thin wrappings, the cloth damp and cold. He closed his eyes, whispering a quiet word of respect, something he had spoken once, for fallen soldiers, but now for children who never had a voice. The girl turned to him, her silver eyes wide and filled with pain. Do you understand now why I begged, why I could not let you walk away? Daniel looked up at her, his face shadowed but his voice firm. I understand, and I will not walk away, not after this. The chamber's silence grew heavier, only broken by the drip of water from the ceiling. Daniel rose slowly, his body tense, but his heart set. How many still live? He asked. The girl wiped her tears with the back of her hand. 7 children and my mother, but they are weak, so weak. Her voice trembled. If no one helps, they will join the ones down here. Daniel's chest ached at her words. He knew the truth. Without food, medicine, and safety, the survivors had little chance, but he also knew this. He could not turn his back. Not now, not ever. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder, steady and warm. You are not alone anymore. I will fight for them. Her breath hitched, her eyes filling again with tears, but this time they carried something more than sorrow, a flicker of hope, fragile but real. Daniel turned once more to the hidden chamber, to the rows of silent bodies that bore witness to cruelty and neglect. He swore silently to himself, they will not die in shadows, not while I breathe. As they stepped back into the main room, the old woman looked at him with weary eyes, her voice faint. Now you see what has broken us. Daniel nodded slowly, his expression hard. And now I see what must be done. The lantern flickered once more, shadows crawling over the walls like claws, the air thick with despair. Yet somewhere deep in that broken room, a seed of defiance had been planted. Daniel knew the fight ahead would not be against sickness alone. It would be against a city that had chosen to bury its shame in silence, but he was ready, because to walk away now would mean betraying everything human in him. The room felt colder after Daniel returned from the hidden chamber, the air heavy with the memory of the silent bodies he had seen below. The lantern flickered weakly, casting trembling light across the frail children who still clung to life. The rain girl sat near her brother again, her hands holding his as if her small warmth could keep him alive. She would not look at Daniel at first, her eyes fixed on the boy's shallow breathing. But Daniel knelt beside her, his voice calm yet firm. You brought me here for a reason, tell me everything. Her lips pressed together, her shoulders shaking, she whispered, If I tell you, you may hate us too. Daniel shook his head slowly. Hate is for those who look away, not for those who survive. Her tears fell silently. Dripping onto her brother's blanket, she lifted her gaze at last, her silver eyes full of pain. We were not only cast out because we are poor, she said, her voice trembling. We were cast out because of what they say we carry. Chalo, old woman in the corner, her mother, stirred and coughed, her voice rough. Speak, child, he has seen enough, hiding will not save us anymore. The girl's breath shook. She turned fully to Daniel, her words spilling out. They say we carry a sickness that spreads, a curse that eats the strong. They call us unclean. They brand us dangerous, and so they drove us out. She bit her lip hard, her hands tightening around her brother's. But it is not true, not like they say. Daniel leaned closer, his brow furrowed. Then what is the truth? The girl's voice cracked. The sickness is real, but it came from them, from the city itself, from the machines they built, from the water they poisoned, she whispered, fast as if afraid the walls might hear. When people began to die, they needed someone to blame, so they pointed to us, the poor, the weak, those without power to fight back. Her words struck Daniel hard, his fists clenched. He thought of the hidden chamber, of the rows of lifeless bodies, not taken by some curse but by hunger, neglect, and lies. They told the city we were cursed, she said, her tears flowing. They told everyone to stay away. They told them to let us rot, and so we did. She lowered her head to her brother's chest, listening to the faint wheeze of his lungs. And every day I watched one more fade until I had to hide them in the dark. Daniel's heart twisted at her confession. He had seen leaders twist truth on battlefields, but never had he seen it used to abandon children. The old woman spoke again, her voice breaking through the silence. We begged for medicine, we begged for food, but the guards drove us away. The merchants raised their prices until we could not pay, and soon even our neighbors spat on us. Her eyes, cloudy yet sharp, fixed on Daniel. Do you see now, human, why we hide in the shadows? Daniel nodded slowly, his voice low and heavy. I see, and I will not let it stay this way. The girl looked at him, shock flickering in her eyes. But if they find out you helped us, they will punish you. They may kill you. Daniel's jaw tightened, his voice steady. I have faced death before, but I have never faced silence like this. If I walk away, then I am no different than those who let you suffer. Her tears came faster. She covered her face with her hands, her small body shaking. I didn't want to tell you, I didn't want you to see, because once you know, you cannot leave without the burden. Daniel gently lowered her hands, his rough palms steady against her trembling ones. Then let me carry it, he said softly, because it is not yours alone anymore. The room fell silent again, but the silence was different now, no longer only despair, but heavy with the weight of truth. One of the younger children stirred, a weak voice rising from the corner. Will he bring food? The child's eyes too tired to stay open, his words fading back into shallow breaths. Daniel's chest tightened. He placed a hand on the child's frail shoulder. Yes, he said firmly. I will bring food. I will bring medicine. I will bring what you need. The girl looked at him, hope and fear clashing in her eyes. Do you swear? She whispered. Daniel met her gaze, steady and unflinching. I swear. The lantern sputtered again, its flame struggling but refusing to die. Shadows stretched across the broken walls, and Daniel felt the moment settle into him like a vow carved into stone. He had seen their suffering. He had heard the truth they could not hide, and now the burden was his. He stood, his figure tall in the dim light, his voice carrying through the broken room. This city wants to bury you in silence, but I will make them hear you. The girl's tears fell fresh, but this time she nodded, her voice trembling but filled with something new. Then maybe we are not cursed after all. And in the midst of sickness and sorrow, for the first time in years, a fragile spark of hope flickered to life. The lantern's glow faded until it was little more than a trembling spark. The room thick with silence. Every face turned toward Daniel as if waiting for him to decide. The girl's silver eyes shone with both fear and hope. Her mother's clouded gaze carried warning, and the children's weak breaths were the only sound. Daniel stood still, the weight of the hidden chamber pressing heavy on his chest. He had seen the rows of lifeless bodies. He had heard the truth of their exile, and now the question burned in his mind. What do I do? The girl broke the silence first, her voice shaking. You should leave before it's too late. If the guards find you here, they will call you one of us. They will drag you away too. Daniel looked down at her, his face calm but his eyes hard. And if I leave, what happens to you? She lowered her head, her voice breaking. Then we die in the dark like the others. Her words tore at him, simple, honest, impossible to ignore. He remembered battlefields where choices were sharp and quick, but this choice was slower, heavier, the kind that could crush a man. He stepped closer to the center of the room, every child's tired eyes following him, his voice steady though his heart pounded. I have two choices, leave you to suffer, or break every rule this city has made to keep you hidden. The old woman coughed, her voice like gravel. If you fight, for us you fight the whole city. They will not forgive you. Human. Daniel met her gaze, his own voice firm. Then let them come. I will not live by their cruelty. The girl's breath caught, tears filling her eyes again. She shook her head. You don't understand. They will not only come for you, they will come for all of us. They will burn this place to the ground if they know you helped. Daniel knelt in front of her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. Then we don't wait for them to come, we move first, we take you out of here. Her eyes widened, shock and fear mixing. Out, she whispered. But where can we go? Every door is closed to us. Every street spits on us. Daniel's mind turned fast. He thought of the places he had worked. The alleys near the shipyard, the warehouses half empty. The tunnels under the old machines. Dangerous but hidden. He could find a way. He had to. He rose again, his figure tall in the dim light, his voice strong. I have made my choice. I will not leave you here. I will not let you fade in silence. The children stirred, weak but listening. their hollow eyes catching the edge of his voice. One whispered faintly, "He will save us." Daniel's chest tightened at the fragile trust in those words, a trust he could not break. The girl, trembling, spoke again. Why would you risk this for us? You owe us nothing." Daniel looked at her with steady eyes. "Because once I saw you, once I heard your cry, you became mine to protect. No one walks away from that and stays human." Her tears fell harder, but her lips curved with the faintest flicker of something. Belief. The old woman leaned against the wall, her voice weaker now. "If you carry this burden, human, it will break you." Daniel turned to her, his jaw firm. "Then let it break. Me better to break for truth than live whole in lies." The lantern sputtered, threatening to die out. The shadows stretched thick across the walls. Daniel's choice had been spoken, but the weight of it pressed down. He knew what it meant. No return, no safety, only danger. The girl stood, her small frame shaking but her voice soft. "If you truly mean it, then you must act quickly. The guards sweep this quarter at dawn. If they smell weakness, they will search deeper." Daniel nodded, already thinking of paths, of stolen carts, of old tunnels he had seen by chance, his soldier mind mapping escape routes in the silence. The children watched him with tired eyes, but for the first time there was a faint light in them, not just hunger and despair, but a question. Could he really save us? Daniel looked at them all, his voice low but steady. "I will try, and I do not fail easily." The girl stepped closer, her hands trembling as they clutched his sleeve. "Then, you are different from them, all of them." He met her gaze, his voice quiet. "No, I am only human, and sometimes that is enough." The lantern finally guttered, plunging the room into near darkness. Only the faint glow of the hidden fungus below gave shape to the walls. Daniel stood in that darkness, his choice carved into him like stone. Outside, in the far distance, a bell rang, harsh, metallic, the city's warning bell, the kind that meant patrols were moving. The sound crawled into the ruined home like a shadow. The girl froze, her eyes wide with fear. "They're coming," she whispered. Daniel's hand moved to his knife, his other hand steady on the girl's shoulder, his voice calm. "Then we move now. The choice is made." And in that moment, in the darkness of the forgotten home, Daniel's promise became action. The human who had only meant to pass through the market had chosen to fight an entire city's silence, and there was no turning back. The bell outside echoed through the broken alleys, each clang sharp like a blade cutting the night. The girl's breath came fast, her hand clutching Daniel's sleeve. The children stirred in fear, some whimpering weakly. The old woman whispered prayers in a voice like dry wind. Daniel stood tall in the middle of the ruined room, his mind sharp, his choice already made. "We cannot stay," he said firmly, his voice steady even as the lantern's last glow flickered out. "If we wait, they will burn this place with all of you inside." The girl's silver eyes shimmered in the dimness, tears threatening but her jaw tight. "Where can we go?" she whispered. "There is no place for us." Daniel's hand tightened on his knife hilt, but his voice softened. "Then we make a place." He moved quickly, pulling aside broken boards near the wall, revealing a gap he had noticed earlier, a half-buried passage that led deeper into the maze of alleys. "We'll take the children. Through here," he said. "I'll carry those who cannot walk." The old woman shook her head weakly. "You cannot save us all," she whispered. "The city will hunt you, human. They will destroy you for this." Daniel crouched beside her, his eyes steady. "Then let them come. I've lived through battles worse than their threats, but I won't live with myself if I leave you here." The girl helped lift her younger brother onto Daniel's back, his frail body light as paper. Daniel's chest tightened at how easily the boy's bones pressed against his skin. He whispered, "Hold on, little one. I've got you. Steppy." By step they began to move, the children clinging to each other, the girl guiding them through the gap, Daniel following close, the air cold and damp in the hidden passage. Outside, boots pounded against the stone. The voices of guards barked orders. Torches flickered in the distance, the city's patrol sweeping the district, their laughter cruel. "Search every hole, drag out the rats," one shouted. The girl froze, fear flooding her face, but Daniel's hand on her shoulder steadied her. "Keep moving," he whispered. Quiet and fast. They crept through the narrow tunnel, every drip of water and scrape of stone sounding like thunder in their ears. The children's small breaths filled the dark, and Daniel felt the weight of each one, lives balanced on his promise. Finally, the tunnel opened into a collapsed courtyard, hidden between leaning buildings, broken roofs above let in thin moonlight. Daniel set the boy down gently, scanning the shadows, his soldier instincts alive. But what he found in the pale light shattered him more than the sickness, more than the hidden chamber. Across the courtyard, carved into the walls, were marks, burned symbols, cruel words scrawled in paint, cursed, untouchable, die in silence. Piles of burned blankets and broken toys lay in heaps, proof that others had once lived here too and had been hunted out. The girl stepped beside him, her face pale, her voice soft as glass. "This is where they burned the others," she said. "We were the only ones left." Daniel's heart felt like stone cracking. His eyes moved over the ashes, the broken remains of lives erased, the smell of old smoke still clinging to the air. He turned to the girl, his voice rough with anger. "They did this to children." She nodded, her tears falling. "Yes, and they will do it again if they find us." Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, the weight of the truth crashing down. He had seen death in war, but this was different. This was not battle. It was cruelty, cold and deliberate. When he opened his eyes again, they burned with a fire the city could not put out. He lifted the boy back onto his shoulders and looked at the girl. "No more, this ends now, I swear it." The children gathered close, their hollow faces turned toward him, weak but listening. His voice carried through the broken courtyard like steel. "You are not cursed, you are not unclean, you are alive. And as long as I breathe, you will stay that way." The girl's lips trembled, her tears falling freely. She whispered, "You sound like no one else in this city. You sound like hope." Daniel looked at her, at the children, at the ashes of those already gone, and felt his heart break and harden all at once. "I am only human," he said, his voice low but unshaken. "But sometimes one human is enough to change everything." The bell rang again in the distance, the guards' voices growing closer, but Daniel no longer feared them. His choice had been made, his burden carried, his promise carved into the HFY. Silence. What he had found inside that ruined home had shattered him. Broken children, hidden graves, cruelty beyond measure. But in the shards of that pain, he had found something else too. A reason to stand, a reason to fight. He turned toward the shadowed alleys, his voice firm. "Come, we move, the night belongs to us now." And with the girl's hand in his, the children close behind, and the fire of his vow burning in his chest, Daniel stepped into the darkness, not as a passerby, but as the one who would carry their hope into the light.